Hey everybody, welcome to the Multifamily Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Peterson, and we have a great show today because it's going to be hosted by no other than my lovely, amazing wife, Shelley Peterson. And Shelley is just going to give you just a trophy case of information, things that are really going to help you and your business. And I'm so glad that she decided to do this. I'm not doing it with her. She's going to go solo. So I'm super excited to have her on the show. Before we get to that, a couple things I want to do. First of all, when you go to iTunes and leave me a review, dude, it means a lot. And so I got a new review here from Tate Seymour. It's one of my go-to podcasts. This podcast is simply money. Corey consistently delivers deep wisdom derived from years of experience in the apartment investing space. He teaches with passion and charisma and offers guidance and suggestions that leave you and your career in a more powerful place. He's dialed into his passion, and it shows in this podcast. The content is informed by years and years of boots on the ground experience, success and failures, and blood, sweat, and tears. I listen to every episode. If you're in apartments, this is a do not miss. Tate, my friend, my brother, thank you so much for that wonderful review. So listen, it really does warm my heart when you guys do this. I love reading these comments, and this is a great shout out to Tate. Listen, Tate's doing some things in apartments already. He's going to be he's an up and comer and going to be doing some amazing things. So again, thanks Tate for taking the time to do that for me. Quickly, a couple things going on in Kahuna Land. We've got a Kahuna Boardroom. Kahuna Boardroom is coming up in October, and we got the special going on right now. So to go, and it's only for $5,000. So we have a payment plan if you need it, but you go to kahunaboardroom.com to register for that. It is application only. We're only allowing 60 people, so I can't teach everybody in the world. I don't want a big-ass room with a bunch of people in there. I want 60 cats that are committed, and let's go and learn the business together. And let me help. My team can support that. We can support you. And listen, you get everything I've ever created, plus you get a lot more. You get a lot of done-for-you stuff, and you get me. You get access to me and guidance and a true mentor. And that's what I always wanted when I started in this business. So I think if you're serious about getting into the multifamily game, our Kahuna Boardroom is by far, I believe, one of the best training programs you'll ever see. And the amount of value we give for the price is stupid. We crush it. I believe we crush it. My team crushes it, and I'm super excited to give that to you. Last thing, now, if that's not for you, though, we just created something really cool for anybody that wants to get started, but you're not quite sure that you want to go to a full-blown event and get everything. You just want to kind of see how it works. KahunaHQ.com, KahunaHQ.com. I'm giving away all my online content, everything I've ever created, plus all my forms and stuff and tricks for $97 a month subscription. So that in itself is huge. So if you just want to figure out, see if you want to learn online, $97 a month. There's nothing else out there that will beat it. It is a great value. Please take me up on it. And by the way, I'll send you 2 copies or a copy of each of my books that I have out. So we'll do that as extra. So we just want you to get plugged in and get excited about this business because I believe it'll change your life. Okay, guys, with that said, right, I need you to give a warm heart welcome to my lovely wife. And listen, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Shelley. Shelley is I don't know if I can say it she's a badass bitch, right? Like, my wife, I'm just going to tell you right now, by far and away, when I was a used car salesman, she was corporate America, pulling in 6 figures, was the breadwinner in our early years. And she did it with such grace and authority, and just from the power. You'll learn when you listen to her that she is a force to be reckoned with, and she has such great insight. I've never seen a person that didn't like my wife. I know that my wife can make friends anywhere. She remembers people's names, their kids. I mean, she has a perfect memory, and she's good at what she does. Um, I watched her in her pharmaceutical career. She's always been ranked number 1 or 2 in every time she's ever played the game. Like, and the only reason she ever fell to number 2 is when they changed the rules in the middle of the stream of a contest or whatever. So, like, she is very focused. She likes winning, but more importantly, she calls me daddy. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. She's been my biggest supporter, my biggest cheerleader. She never poo-pooed on my dreams in real estate. She always watered it. She always mended my wounds. But rightfully so, she has now come on board full time with me, and that took a lot of convincing because she likes the retired life. Trust me. But she really enjoys what she does, and she does it amazingly well. So with further ado, put your hands together for my lovely wife, Shelley Peterson.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining with me today. Of course, you all know me as Shelley Peterson, Corey Peterson's better half, and I'm super excited to talk to you guys about how to conduct face-to-face calls and attracting that passive investor. A little bit of background information about myself. As you know, I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for over 15 years. And I believe that coupled with Corey's financial background, along with my pharmaceutical sales experience, I think we have some really cool techniques that are a little bit different. It may be out of some people's comfort zone to do this, but I hope you find value, and let's just get started. So we've seen a lot of ways how you can attract passive investors. Now, if you've already used up your warm market, you've already talked to all your friends and your family, and now you're trying to grow your email list or your mailing list, traditionally what I have seen are folks will either go to do trade show booth, or perhaps you go to these meetups, you go to your local RIA. There's all different ways to skin the cat to attract that passive investor. However, what I have noticed is that, are we attracting the right investor? So sometimes when I go to these local RIAs, it's these investors that want your whole deal. And that's not what we're trying to attract here. We're trying to attract high income producing professionals that are super busy. They don't have time, nor do they have the bandwidth to learn how to do real estate. And they just want an alternative to the stock market. Because as you know, we all know that we should have some sort of real estate in your portfolio. And so what our company does, and what we're trying to accomplish, is provide that service and get the word, get the message out there that there are other ways that you can invest your hard-earned dollars, okay? So again, my background's in pharmaceutical sales. I've been trained by some of the best companies in the world. Merck Pharmaceuticals has a really intensive training program. Novin, which is a women's health company. And so I've learned several techniques over the years on the best way to have discussions with healthcare professionals. You know, how many times do I have to get my message across for that physician to really let that message resonate? And my whole goal back in my old career was to get them to change their prescribing habits. And really what you're doing is you're educating, you're giving them information for them to make a proper decision. Okay, so I kind of look at this method is the same thing when I'm out there doing face-to-face calls. It's just a different product. I'm not peddling drugs. I'm peddling an earlier retirement. I'm peddling, owning real estate without the hassle of management. These are the things I'm peddling, the power of what multifamily apartments can do for you and for your family. So it is a very exciting product or service that's in my bag. So before we get started, your whole goal in going into these offices is really twofold. You are obtaining information. You're going to try to collect as much information you possibly can to either put them in your email list or your mailing list, okay? So that way you can do a drip campaign on these new folks. You're really wanting to get your message out there of the products and services that you can provide for these folks. Now, one way that I like to do this is I do what's called a sales blitz. And so you can either do it two ways. You can do a target on a specific people in your backyard, whether that's chiropractors, dentists, whatever target you want to go for. You can pull up a list of the surrounding chiros in your backyard or in your zip code. Or you can do what's called a sales blitz. Typically, you're going to see these big medical buildings or just buildings that have all kinds of businesses in there. And I don't like to discriminate because you never know who's going to raise their hand and say, yes, I want to know more. So typically I would like to go out to these buildings and, there might be a pediatric office. There might be, an OBGYN office. There could be, physical therapy. There's chiropractors. There's all kinds of medical professionals in these big buildings. And that's a good place to start. Okay. So what are you going to want to bring on your visits? Well, first let's talk about your appearance, because that's very important. You want to make sure that you are representing your company, your products and services. So as you can see, I have a jacket on. You want to look the part. You want to look very professional. Now, if you are in a hot environment and you're like, okay, Shelley, I can't suit up. I want to make sure, you can have a t-shirt or, with your company logo. You can have, a polo collared shirt. But for women, I like wearing, nice sundresses or a business suit, depending on the weather, and just make sure you have a professional name tag. So I always have a name tag, even though if my outfit is branded, already has a logo, I still like having a name tag because people will remember your name and who you are. So, right. So let's talk about, what do you do when you are in the office and now I know this may be scary for a lot of folks because, they say it takes a certain personality just to go into places and to make friends. For me, I love doing that. I love going into offices and making new friends. I want to be everybody's best friend. They're going to love me. I'm going to win you over. And I rarely take no for an answer. So, and a lot of times I get my ways. So if you want to know who wins most of the battles in our marriage, it's going to be me. So I love you, honey. I know he's listening. Okay. So when you're in the offices, you want to make sure that you are packing. Okay. So I always carry my bag of fun stuff. And what you'll typically find in my bag are going to be some visual aids, a lot of giveaways. So here I have some pop sockets. I have our Kahuna investment pens. I'm going to have our credibility kit. I'm going to be very prepared just in case if someone says, tell me more, I want to make sure that I utilize that opportunity right there in the moment. So don't ever miss an opportunity. If someone is interested in your message and if they have time, you definitely want to take advantage of that. Okay. So, but you want to make sure that you're always prepared as well. So make sure that you have all the materials that you need in order to conduct business. All right. Okay. So visual aids are going to be anything that talks about what you do as a company. Okay. I typically don't like to give out my credibility kit because it's a lot of information. So what I like to do is do what's called a visual aid or a marketing piece. And I do highly recommend that you get that approved by your SEC attorney. Okay. So a lot of my marketing messages gets approved by Mauricio, who's our SEC attorney. And I want to make sure that we are fair balance and that we are in compliant per SEC guidelines. So make sure that if you're going to use visual aids or marketing pieces, make sure that you have your SEC attorney approve those for you. Okay. And so I know that you guys, so a couple of things before you even go in the office, you have to be very mindful of your message. What are you trying to accomplish? Right. And we'll talk about the face-to-face call structure and what that's going to sound like. But again, going back to what to bring to the office, you're going to bring your visual aids. You're going to bring any fun little branding, fun stuff like the pens, the pop sockets. Now listen, the pharmaceutical industry cannot give away goodies anymore. Okay. So it's against pharmacode guidelines. And so I've had to learn to be very creative over the years to get in the door, make friends quickly. And because we couldn't give away pens, because pens, for crying out loud, is going to, affect the way a doctor prescribes. Anyway, it's kind of crazy, but luckily for us, we can do that. We can give away any kind of promotional items, sticky notepads, things that are useful in the office are always helpful. So if you can do that, if you have any marketing dollars to spend, I would highly recommend, giving away pens, sticky notes. You can do little notepads. There's all different ways that you can help that office with their practice expenses. Okay. Also, another trick is I always like to feed people. So, the best times to go in to see these professionals is anywhere in the morning. So a lot of times they're like, well, when do I go? What's the best time to go see these guys? I like to go early in the morning or towards the evening, whether they're getting ready to start their day or when they're finishing up. Starting earlier, the better, because they're fresh and they're not seeing patients and they'll have more time for you, okay? There's a lot of I have a big group of OBGYNs that I used to call on years ago, and I could never get into this practice. It was so hard to talk to the doctor or even have, a conversation. And so finally what is the best way to get a hold of these guys? And the office manager said, Shelley, they do what's called a providers meeting, a breakfast meeting. And you can get a good, 10 minutes with these guys. I'm like, sign me up. Now it was freaking early, you guys. It was, 7:00 in the morning. So that means I would have to get up, order breakfast around 6 and be at the facility at 7 in the morning. Now, most representatives, that's a lot of them will do that, but your typical rep, they're like, oh no, that's not what I'm going to do. So these are some certain advantages that you can do to be ahead of the game, okay? So those are very powerful. Doing breakfast meetings are fantastic. Okay, so we talked about what you're going to bring to the office, some strategies around, and I'll talk more about that on accessibility, because I know that is a big issue, especially today. With the coronavirus and everything that's going on, I do believe the country is opening up. A lot of my old pharmaceutical friends, they're actually going back into the offices right now. And so it's a good time to get out there. Okay, let's talk about face-to-face call structure. So you have identified who you're going to see, whether you're going to do a sales blitz and you're going to go out and hit these big buildings that have multiple professions. You could do that. Or I like to do what's called targeting. Maybe I just want to call on the chiropractors in a certain zip code. So talking about what type of healthcare professionals you should call on and who you shouldn't call on. So I have found over the years that the folks that are pretty accessible are going to be your chiropractics, physical therapy, radiologists, dentistry, pediatrics, OBGYN's not so bad. Now, the ones that are very difficult, and I'm going to say, do not even attempt to go in these practices because you will just be super frustrated and discouraged. These are the offices that you want to stay away from. And those are going to be your primary care offices and internists. These guys are inundated with so many patients in a day. It's very common for these docs to see 30 patients in a day. It's unbelievable. They are turning and burning, and they will have no time for you, nor will they, your message, your product, they'll forget. Even if you leave anything behind, they're like, who is this? And they're just gonna throw it away in the trash. Okay, so please just do not waste your time. Now, if you know them, if you have a relationship with them, then obviously you can go in and talk to those guys. But for now, I would stick to the more accessible offices, which would be, the chiropractics, the dentistries, pediatrics are good ones. I like radiologists, things that these are healthcare professionals that don't get a lot of love because they're not either, some of them are not prescribing drugs, so they don't have anybody calling on them as much. Okay, so there's a good place for you to start. Let's talk about, what do you do when you walk into the door? That could be scary for some folks and be very uncomfortable, because you're like, what do I say? What do I say? So this is where your messaging and building rapport is going to be very important. And you don't want to leave anybody out in that office. You want to make people feel so important and so special. You don't care if they're the receptionist. You don't care if they're the back office manager. You want to love on all of those people that are in that practice, okay? Yes, your goal is to talk to the doctor and set an appointment with the doctor, but don't leave out the little guys, because you never know. They may have a really good, nice Roth IRA where they can convert that to a self-directed IRA, or they have family that's looking to retire, or I just don't discriminate, okay? So you wanna make sure that you talk to everybody. So when you're looking at a face-to-face call structure, you're going to have 4 things that you want to keep in your head. I always like to put my messaging into categories. That's how my brain works. I don't know. Most women brains is like a highway. You just, we're able to like connect the dots. Corey, on the other hand, it's very compartmentalized. Like it's just one track. So this is why you say that a lot of women are very good at multitasking. Right? Okay, so in your call structure, you want to have an opening. Okay, and then opening is very simple, you guys. It's just the greet, and your opening is going to sound a little bit something like this. You're going to walk up to the front desk. You're like, "Hey, I'm Shelley Peterson with Kahuna Investments. We're an alternative to the stock market, and I was just seeing if Doc was in today. I just want to introduce myself. We're new in the community, and I just want you to know that we are here and available to help you with your financial investing needs." I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool." And so I like to have conversations with the front desk. And like, "Are you ready to retire, girl?" I'm very informal. Sometimes I think that if you go into an office and you're too formal, it makes people uncomfortable. That has been my experience, because the people that are at the front desk, they're in the customer service. They're greeting patients, and they're just, at the end of the day, people are people, and they want to feel special, and they want to feel like they are important. So I always try to get to know them, get their name. "Jamie, how you doing, girl? How's your day been going?" A little bit of small talk. And if I have any goodies, sometimes I have candy or donuts. That's a good way of really making friends fast. And a lot of times I'm also going to gather information from that front desk person, right? So a lot of times I'll ask the front desk, I'm like, "Hey, what's the best time to talk to the doc? Do you guys do any breakfast meetings? Do you do any lunch meetings?" You can call them lunch meetings, or oftentimes the term is in services. You can do that as well. They're like, "Oh yeah, we would love for you guys to come and do a breakfast service for us, or a lunch service." "Great, I would love to get on your calendar." And so that's one way of really having a capture audience, is setting an appointment. Okay. Now the good news is, when you're doing these face-to-face calls, you already have one important piece of information, and that's their mailing address. So I'll get to you about why that mailing address is so important and what to do with that information at the end of this call. So your opening is very informal. You're just basically saying who you are, who you represent, and what you do. Now, if they say, "Hey, yeah, Doc is here, he's available," now you want to go to number 2 part of this call structure, and that's the key points. Okay, so what are the key points that you are going to address to that healthcare professional? Okay, and a lot of times it could sound a little bit like this. And now again, this is my disclaimer, you cannot talk about a deal. You cannot talk about any future deals, right? That is against SEC guidelines. But what you can talk about is the power of apartments and what apartments can do. You could talk about, we're an alternative to the stock market. We help, busy professionals such as yourself retire sooner rather than later through, real estate investing. And they're like, "Oh, well, tell me more." So there's certain, if you say apartments, you have to make sure that you clarify, because a lot of times their brain goes to, "Well, I don't want to manage tenants and toilets." So I always say it's owning real estate without the hassle of management, right? We leave that to the professionals. Okay, and that kind of perks up the year. Would love to share with you more. Do you have time, Doc, to sit down and chat with me for a few minutes? Absolutely. Or, "Hey, Shelley, I don't have time today, but I'm very interested and I want to know more." That's when you're going to schedule your in-service, whether it's a breakfast or a lunch. But if you can, if you have the opportunity to talk about your company and your services, you could do that in a very short amount of time and be effective, okay? A lot of times in the call structure, you might have, a close to action or any objection handling, because a lot of times I will get, "Well, are you guys a REIT?" Like, we are not a REIT. So be prepared for that. And I do have some common objections that that's in our course that I can share with you guys. But just reach out to me if you want to go over objection handling, I will be happy to help you with that. But I have a lot to cover, so I'm just going to keep on going, pressing on here. Okay, I can be reached on Instagram, Mama Kahuna, or on Facebook. I'm kind of a Facebook snob. I don't typically accept the invite if I haven't met you in person. I'm sorry, but if I haven't hugged you or if I haven't shaken your head, typically don't accept your invite on my personal page. But you can always go to Kahuna Wealth Builders or Kahuna Investments that way to get a hold of me as well. Okay, so when you're talking about the your key points, why apartments. I like to talk about scale of economy. It's always nice, instead of would you rather, Doc, own 100 homes that are spread out, or would you rather have 100 units that's in one spot, right? We talk about why apartments aren't going, why they're not going away, because baby boomers and millennials, they're always renting. So whatever your key message, whatever your key messages are, you're going to have to tailor that message depending on that person and what is important to them. Okay. So if retiring is important to that physician, your message may sound a little different, right? It may sound like, hey, Doc, let me show you how I can help you create some passive income. Okay, that perks up his ears. And believe it or not, a lot of doctors are struggling right now in their practices. The overhead's very expensive. The reimbursements and health insurance isn't what it used to be. I'll give you an example. I had an OBGYN that I used to call on, great guy, Dr. Colleen. I love this man. And he was an older guy getting ready to retire. And he said, Shelley, I used to do hysterectomies back in the 70s. And he said, I used to get paid more back in the 70s than I do now in the year, in 2000. And I'm thinking, wow, that's something. And, healthcare is ever changing. And these guys, I've found over the years that these doctors are super stressed out. They're not making the money that they used to make. And the money that they used to make can't support the practice. And, oftentimes you'll see these doctors that have had these practices for many, many years shut their doors, and they'll start, now they're employed by some of these big healthcare networks, like Banner's a big one out here, Mercy. There's all these big healthcare companies that are hiring doctors. And it's really sad, because it was an opportunity for these doctors to have some autonomy and make money. And now they are, they basically have gone from an entrepreneurship role, and now they are in a job, and they freaking hate it, because as you know, once you are in a job, you are essentially, you're trading your time for money. So not only are they shutting down their practices, but now they're making, less money and working more. So I feel for these guys. And you know what? We have a great opportunity to help them support their income, help them have some ownership, some tax shelter. There's so many benefits as to why folks should be investing in real estate, right? I am a very big advocate of, I'm not going to knock the stock market, but I will say that you should be diversifying your portfolio. I'm a big believer of making sure that you're diversifying your portfolio. And oftentimes these busy healthcare professionals, they just don't know how to get started. They don't even know services that we can do for these folks. They don't know you exist. So the only way that you can get out there to promote your brand, promote what you do, is just to get out face to face. The other reason why I like face to face is it's bringing that, you're connecting again, that human touch. And I feel as a society, we have lost that. We have gotten away with customer service, and everything is digital. Everything is, so impersonal. And I just think that we have really gotten away of that human connection, especially with all the technology that's happening. It's always changing. It's always advancing. Heck, I didn't even know. My son today just said, "Mom, I need a new phone." I'm like, "Connor, you got the 10. Like, that's like the best one. He's like, no, Mom, my phone's old. I need an 11. And I'm like, well, how much is that going to cost? I'm like, you're going to pay for it, kid. Mom's out. But holy cow, I didn't even know there was an 11. That's how out of touch I am. I thought I was cool because I have the 10. The 10 iPhone was supposed to be the best thing, right? Anyway, that just shows you how fast technology is always moving. All right, so I feel like that I'm just kind of rambling with you guys, but I just, this is just such a cool way of meeting new people, attracting investors. And listen, you can do this in many ways. You can invite them to an upcoming program that you might have. You might want to put on an event. Your direct IRA company, whoever you're using, maybe Quest. Now, a lot of times they'll help you sponsor these events, which are really nice. You can drive people, people that we would love to, to tell you more about what we do and how we can help. Okay. All right. So say you haven't met the doctor's busy, and, you don't stop there. If you have an opportunity to meet the office manager, hey, is the office manager in? Have a discussion with the office manager. You are wanting to talk to anybody and everybody in that office. Just because the doc's not available, it's okay. You're meeting people, you're getting your brand out there, you're promoting your services. And a lot of times you'll be very surprised. What we do is a hot topic for folks. Everybody knows they should be involved in real estate in some form or fashion. So it's up to us to get that message out there. All right. Now, if the doc's not in and you feel like there's some potential in there and you're getting a lot of, questions and a lot of interest, say, you know what, I would love to share with you guys more. Is there a better time for me to come back? Right. So if you're budget conscious, which I am, I'm always budget conscious. Ask Corey. He laughs at me because I'm the type of gal that will still shop at TJ Maxx and Ross. I don't, I'm not this fancy. I like to look fancy, but I like to look fancy on a budget. Anyway, you'll often find like, yeah, you know what? He's got some time around 3 o'clock. Can you come back then? So you have to ask. You have to ask lots of questions, and you want to get to know what the heck is going on in that practice. I always like to ask, like, how many patients does the doc see in a day? When's the, how many in-services or lunches happen in your practice? Do you have a lot of people calling on you? And, you'll want to know what their patient load, patient type, how that practice is being ran, right? Are there other providers that are in besides the doc? Because a lot of times some of these offices will have more than one physician, and you want to go to those offices that have more than one physician, all right? Because that's going to help you increase your visibility and beat those odds of getting that conversation out there, all right? Okay, so when we talked about the opening of the call, you're basically, again, you're just going in with the mindset of, I am new, here's my company, I just want to introduce myself, this is what we do, and that's really it, you guys. I don't typically like to, I call it feature puking. You don't want to talk to them too much about everything that you do. Because a confused mind says no. And a lot of times, if you're giving them too much information, it's overwhelming, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to confuse your new customer. Okay, so what are you going to do once you leave the office? So you've either scheduled an appointment, or you have met the doctor, you got some key messages, points across, right? Maybe you had a small, 20-second discussion with the doctor, just something to kind of let him know that you're available. All right. The next thing that you're going to do, and this is the important piece, this is why we're actually going into these offices in the first place. You're introducing yourself, you are getting your name out there, but the whole goal is to do this. And again, this is very powerful because remember what I said, you have their mailing address. Now you have their name. Hopefully you might have obtained their email address or a phone number. Now you have the office phone number, but eventually you're going to want whoever you're targeting, you're going to want their email address and you're going to want their phone number as well. But for now, you have a mailing address and you have the names of the individuals that you talk to. So here's what you're going to do after that call. You are going to log that customer in your CRM. We use Infusionsoft. So whatever CRM you're using, you are going to want to keep track of the people that you talk to, okay? Because if you don't, it was all for nothing. So keep this in mind. Pfizer did a study years ago, I believe in the early 90s, that it took a physician 16 times to even remember a rep's product or who they were or that message. Okay, 16 times that you have to expose that person to your brand for them to let it sink in. All right, so think about that for a minute. So now that you have their mailing address and you enter them into your CRM, you are going to click on your mailing campaign that's going to remind you to do some important steps. And step one is you're going to write them a thank you card. And oftentimes my thank you card is, hey, Dr. Walters, it was so nice to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I'm looking forward to helping you with your multifamily investing goals, okay? And it's personalized. I had my signature pineapple stamped wax seal, and I put it in the mail. Now, the next step is you're going to want to create what's called a tickler file. Now, Corey used to do this in his Edward Jones days, and they would send out certain marketing pieces or postcards to kind of keep that customer, your brand and who you are fresh in their mind. So what I like to do is I use postcards, and we have 5 postcards. And the first postcard is welcome to the Kahuna family or Kahuna Investments. And, and our brand is very specific to who we are as a company. And so it says, aloha from the Kahuna family. The most critical part of any organization is its people and culture. You'll find our team is available, caring, and extremely focused on providing world-class customer service. We would love to welcome you to the Kahuna family and experience the spirit of our aloha. And that's Kahuna Investments, an alternative to the stock market. Now that will, after you send the thank you card, you're going to put the next postcard into week 1. So let me just back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. So when you create your tickler file, you're going to want to have either manila envelopes or hanging folders, and then you're going to label them week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. And once you have a new customer or new potential passive investor, you're going to have 5 postcards and a thank you card. So week 1 is going to be your thank you card. You're going to send that out immediately after you spoke to that person. And then week 2 is going to be welcome to your company, and whatever verbiage you want to put in there, that's up to you and your company or who you are. Now, listen, if you don't have a brand, if you don't have a company, you could totally just, you could create these for pennies, you guys. It could be just a simple postcard. All right. And just, you could actually, you don't even have to put, welcome to, I do, now Corey talked about branding last time. So it is important. So if you're serious about the multifamily game, then I highly encourage that you do get your branding guide and start there first. Okay. The next postcard is going to say, is it enough? And this is what it looks like. It's a golden egg in a basket or in a nest. And it's like, and it says, are you ready for retirement? The majority of Americans are not. Failing Social Security and dated financial planning practices put strains on many retirees' finances. So I'm not going to read all the verbiage that's in each postcard, but it's available. If you want to see what our mailing campaign looks like, reach out to me on Instagram. It's Mama Kahuna. That's not hard to remember, Mama Kahuna. And let me know, and I'll be happy to help you or walk you through that, okay? So again, so now that's your follow-up. At the end of the follow-up, you're gonna regularly, this is what reps do. They go back and they check on their customers from time to time. Just because they say no or I'm not interested, it's no, I'm not interested today, or no, I need more information. That's not enough information. They may still be confused on what you do, because again, I don't think I have met anybody in the syndication world that's doing what we're doing. Okay. But that's a good thing. So hopefully, if you are doing this, then kudos to you. And if you're not, stick with me. I'm always test piloting different marketing materials. I'm always test piloting, what message resonates with the physician. Some resonates more than others. So I'm always looking to improve my message and to really bring that physician to the next level. And so, the next time that we talk, guys, I'm going to go over, once you are in the office and they say, hey, Shelley, the doc's going to meet with you. What's next? What does that conversation look like? So today we just talked about just getting your foot in the door, some of the best ways to do it. I'm always say always be packing. You want to make sure that you're bringing some sort of treat, something that is a reminder of you, whether they're marketing pens with your logo or pop sockets. That's always good. You want to leave your business card, right? A lot of times I like to package them up in like little cellophane bags and put some candy, and then put my business card, maybe put, a couple of reminder pens in there. And that's always really nice for folks to get. So on the next edition, I hope you guys will join me on what does it sound like to actually meet with the physician. Now I often do either an in-service when I'm talking to a group of physicians, or I'll do Zoom meetings. So this next segment is going to apply to either or. One's in person and one's over a Zoom call. So I hope you guys enjoyed this segment today. Again, I probably came in kicking and screaming because Corey's like, babe, you need to record a podcast. I'm like, babe, no, I'm not. Don't tell me what to do, Corey. It's always fun working with your spouse. So for those that work with your spouse, let me just give you a couple of tips here. Actually, just one. Just don't tell your spouse what to do, because if she's anything like me, their knee gut reaction is going to be, nope, not today. So I apologize that this didn't get out last week, but that was the reason. Okay, but I'm here and I'm available. And thank you so much for having me on.